All right, it's 4:30. I think we can get started.
Okay, fantastic. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for Better Together, Shaping School Culture. My name is Dawn McHatter, and I'm the Curriculum and Instruction Senior Manager here at Van Andel Institute. And with me is our director, Tara Tarango. Hi, Tara.
Hi, everybody. Tara here. Thanks for joining us.
Excellent. And then Tara and I are really pleased to also have with us two of our administrators on our advisory council. They're going to join us for a panel in a little bit. We have Sonia Jackson, principal from Southfield Public Schools. Hi, Sonia.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here today, Sonia. And we also have with her Anna Ailman Putman, who is the Student Academic Success and Wellbeing District Coordinator for Granville Public Schools. Hi, Anna.
Hello, Don. You nailed that title. You got it.
I know, I'm sorry. I'll do better next time, I promise. But thank you for being here too, Anna. I really appreciate it. And we will bring them back here in just a minute. But before we do that, we're going to jump into our chat. So we like to get things kind of primed up a little bit, start thinking about culture. And in the chat, just let us know where you are from. And in 3 to 5 words, why this topic is important to you. And we're not really counting words, so you can write whatever you want or however long you want. So why is culture important to you? Why did you decide to register for this event? We'll let that go here, and we'll kind of watch that. And the chat we'll be using throughout our time together. It's a way to network, to share ideas, to ask questions. And for me, if I to write in the chat, I would say culture is everything. What about you, Tara? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it really is the foundation of what you're trying to build. It's what, kind of sets everything in motion. So I think that's why I find it an interesting topic. If you don't have that, it's hard to build off of anything if you don't have culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, here
Excellent.
we
Start
go.
seeing some
Yeah.
coming in here. Excellent. We have Pierce Cedar Creek Institute. Culture is retention.
Several people mentioning retention, still a big issue for schools.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The culture is good. The school thrives. Yep. Yeah, I was actually just in a meeting right before here, and we talked specifically about culture and just how important it is. So yeah, we'll keep this chat going. So feel free to keep adding, sharing where you're from, your ideas, your thoughts, and use this as a tool to network. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to go ahead and move on, but please keep engaging in that chat as we're going. All right, Tara, I think this one's yours.
You always got to start off with a meme, don't you? So when I think about culture, every school is unique and has their own culture, and every leader is unique and has their own culture. So I don't know if this resonates for you, but sometimes it resonates for me. I'm not bossy. I have skills, leadership skills. So hopefully we're not threatening people with, weapons or sticks or that sort of thing. But I just thought it was a funny way to think about how do we enforce culture? How do we make ourselves known as leaders and kind of get that persona? And maybe this isn't the persona we should all be going for, but I thought it might just be a fun way to kick it off.
Love it. No, I love that.
So today we're going to look at our time, our hour together. And as Dawn mentioned, it's really about, networking and getting to hear from one another because administrators don't always get a chance to talk to other administrators who are facing the same challenges and the same difficulties. So we're going to spend about 10 minutes sort of talking about setting the stage for school culture, some foundational ideas. And then we're going to mostly tap into Anna and Sonia and as an administrator panel, ask them some questions about what they do in their school. You can feel free to chime in the chat, answer as well. That way we're all sort of learning from one another. I'm definitely guessing you're going to find some commonalities in the challenges you face and hopefully some good ideas for establishing some great school culture for yourself. And then after that, we'll share, Dawn and I have compiled some of our top tips and takeaways to share with you in addition to the sort of sharing that we get out of the panel and out of each other. So that's our time together. We don't have to take the whole time. If we go quicker, we can end early. We won't take more of your time, but we also, if we have a good discussion going, we will let that go as long as it is going so that we can make sure we hear from everybody. So that's what we have planned for you.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Tara. As Tara mentioned, we're going to start off here just setting the stage, for school culture and just having that kind of foundational as we're talking today and working with the admin panel, that kind of foundational understanding of culture and what it means, what it means to you personally, and what it means to the group that is here tonight. So I found this quote, and I really, really liked how they defined culture. Culture is simply a shared way of doing something with a passion, right? You have your vision, you have your mission, your goals for your school and your district, and you want a culture. You want the people that are a part of your culture to be working towards that shared vision with passion, right? That's what we want. We want passionate staff members that feel empowered and valued and a part of our mission and goals. And so I just wanted to take a step back and just to clarify culture and climate, because a lot of times they're used interchangeably, and they really are two different things, although they do interplay quite a bit. So when we're talking about culture, we're talking about those shared beliefs, values, norms, your practices. It's the foundation of your school, your district, or any organization for that matter. They are very deeply embedded. They take a long time to change, so they evolve over time. It's very stable. So an example is, so maybe in your school or district, you value innovation. You value innovation in teaching and learning, or maybe you value collaborative practices, whether it's collaboration in the classroom, collaboration in your staff. Those are things that you hold true. That's what you believe, that's what you value, and that's what you are continuing to work towards. Now, when you walk into a school building or district, there's this certain feeling you get. Now, you're not feeling the culture per se, you're actually feeling the climate. Now, of course, culture does impact the climate, but climate is different. Climate is what's going on in that school right now, and it can change very, very quickly. Even if you have a very strong, very stable, positive culture, if there's something that happens, let's say 4 years ago, to change how we teach kids and education, that can really have an impact on climate. Right? Or let's say you hire someone that isn't necessarily a culture fit. And even though you have a really strong culture, that person that you hired, if they're not working in the way that they need to be working in this culture, that can impact the climate and eventually erode the climate. So thinking about those two things a little bit differently, but understanding that culture is really the foundation that's going to move your school forward. But we have to pay attention to climate because it can change so quickly compared to culture. And so this is a great visual representation of that, thinking of an iceberg where the culture is kind of that 90% of what you don't see in a school or an organization. And then what you do see, that climate there at the top, and that's the part that can get eroded, that can change very quickly, because obviously that bottom 90% is going to take a much longer time to change, to melt. And then one last quote, and this is from the sports world, but I really, really love this quote, because if you think about your culture are your people. Your people are a team. So if I replace team with culture, this really resonates. The strength of a culture is determined by the strength of the connections on the culture. A great culture requires great relationships. And that's what we're going to focus on today. We're all about building relationships, building connections to improve and shape culture. And starting at the heart, because your people, your staff, your students are the heart of your school and your district. Let's start there. So with that, we are going to try a poll here. And I'm hoping this works here. So you should all have a question there. Which of these connections do you want to improve most in your school? Which of these connections? Now, you may want to look at doing all of them, but I'm going to ask you just to pick one. Like if you had to focus on one of those types of connections, what would you want to focus on there? So go ahead and take a few seconds to bring in your answers there. So leadership to staff, staff to staff, student to staff, student to student, or school and community. Give you a few more seconds to put in your response there.
Really highlights how complex culture is. You have all these different relationships to
Yes,
sort of, contend with.
absolutely. Yes, good point. Okay, so if you can see that we had about equal footing in leadership staff, student staff, and school community, and then staff to staff as well. So we're going to really kind of hone in on those areas that you've identified there as well. So thank you very much for doing that. And we are going to move on to our administrator panel. So we're going to bring back Anna and Sonia, and I'm just going to give them a quick introduction here before Tara takes over with the questions we have for today. So Sonia brings 30 years of experience in education, including 12 years in leadership and administration. She has taught general and special ed across elementary, middle, and high school. She is an improvement coach. She's been that for the last 2 years. She's served 3 years on the school board and has been on the advisory council for Van Andel Institute for Education for 4 years. Anna is the Student Academic Success and Wellbeing District Coordinator for Granville Public Schools. Previously, she served as principal at a school in Grand Rapids Public Schools, as well as Granville Public Schools. Prior to administration, she was a classroom teacher and paraprofessional. She is also on the Van Andel Education for Institute Advisory Council. So thank you both for joining us. And I'm going to turn things over to Tara, and then I will also be watching the chat. So feel free to use that and ask questions as we go along.
All right, we've got a few questions for you guys. And as Dawn mentioned, feel free to answer in the chat as well to kind of round out these answers. But the first one I'm thinking about is something that we've all dealt with from time to time is conflicts between staff members that arise. So maybe Anna, you can tackle this one. How do you handle conflicts between staff when that happens?
Absolutely. I think the very worst thing you could possibly do is ignore it. When you ignore it, it just simmers there. So in my experience, the very first thing I've always done is I have addressed it. And typically it begins with a staff member coming to me and complaining or bringing a concern to me about something. And the very first thing I say to them is, have you talked to the other person? Always, always, always. And then that sends them right back to that person. And typically I have found that tends to fix the issue. But if not, they'll come back to me and we just have a discussion. I'll talk to one person, then I will talk to the other person. And then depending on what the problem is, I can bring them together and we can have a discussion and kind of clear out the air. Sometimes what I find is the way that the issue happened, it could have been a miscommunication between how an email was read. It could have been a miscommunication on how they perceived something that happened or how a text was read. So having them together after I've talked to them individually in my office seems to really, really address the issue and solve any further problem from happening.
Yeah, I like that first step is have you talk to them, because that nips a lot of them right there. They're not willing to go necessarily talk to the person. Well, if you're not willing to talk to the person, then it's probably not as big of an issue as maybe you're making it out in your head,
Absolutely.
So I think that's a nice first step there. Excellent. Yeah, thank you. All right. And again, feel free to add into the chat, but moving on to connections between staff and leaders. This is definitely something I know, Sonia, you've talked about this and it's important to you. What are some effective ways you've found to ensure that staff feel seen and heard by yourself and other members of leadership? And how do you follow up on their feedback or concerns when they do feel heard?
Well, what I've practiced over the 12 years is surveys. I'm big on surveys. Just sending surveys out in my staff meeting agenda. I keep a link that says "You matter," and I have staff give feedback all year round. Once I receive that feedback, if it's many times there's only 1 or 2 staff members that respond to it, I will address it in a staff meeting. And it may be something as simple as, for example, a staff member may put in that they don't think that students are being disciplined. They're big on that. If you send them back to the classroom, they don't think nothing's been done. So I will address that, but then also I will also have staff I want them to understand that if you put their information in survey, you can always still come to me and talk to me. I have an open door policy, and they use it because I'm here typically an hour before the day starts. So I have staff members that will come in. I have a time 30 minutes prior to that. That's allotted for staff just come in and talk, and they use it. Because as a building leader, sometimes we get very busy. And when you're walking in the halls, can we talk a minute? Can we talk a minute? I really don't have that time. And I want staff to know that I am listening because sometimes they just want someone to listen. So I give them that time 30 minutes before my day starts to have that open door policy where they can come in and I give them my undivided attention. But the surveys is what I live by because staff will be honest in surveys. And again, they may not reveal who they are, but I always give them the opportunity because we have that relationship. So I don't get as many as I used to in the surveys because they will just come to my office and tell me their concerns. So
that makes sense. I love that there's something subtle but really poignant about the fact that your survey is named "You Matter." I think that's a really
yes,
interesting tip, and it's a relatively small and easy thing to do, but it really signals a huge message.
absolutely. And like I said, I keep it in every staff meeting agenda that I send out so they have opportunity to click on that. And again, I make sure I follow through because you want them to know that you are reading and that you're taking their feedback seriously. And it does matter how they feel.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great tip. Anna, how do you as a leader build trust and open those lines of communication with your staff members, especially when it gets super, super busy or in times of challenge? How do you keep those lines of communication open?
So I think trust takes time. You have to invest lots of time into building that trust. And sometimes it's just small things like what I have found in my many years of being a principal was whatever school I was at, I always tried to every morning get to every classroom and say, good morning, how are you? How are you, Brian? How are you, Sarah? And that what I would pay attention to was the response that I got back. And if it was kind of like, tepid, kind of like fine, kind of, I always tried to circle back to that person at some point during the day and say, hey, how's it going? To see what was happening in the classroom. Was it that they had a bad morning and now in their classroom they feel super stressed out and they just need a minute? And they'd be like, do you want me to cover for a minute? Or you just go get a coffee or go do something. Because when you pay attention, when you work on that relationship, when you show them that you see them and that they matter, that begins to grow trust. When you ask questions about so if I go in the morning and someone says, yeah, my mom's, I had to take my mom for surgery, I remember that. I lock it in my brain. And then the next day or in a couple of days say, hey, how is your mom? So that they know that they really do matter to me, that I care, that no matter what happens, that I'm going to pay attention to them. And what I found with that builds a lot of capital for me. So I'll give you an example. COVID. When COVID happened, it was really hard. It was really hard for everyone. And as a principal, what I really tried to do was I tried to pour into them. Here in Grandville, we were down for part of the year, and then the rest of the time we were open, with masks. We had all the protocols, but man, those teachers were just hanging on. So what I tried to do is I tried to pour into them, not just with I'd go buy coffees for them and all these different little treats, but also just paying attention to how so-and-so was feeling, how so-and-so's child was sick, how so-and-so, learning about them. Really, I cannot tell you how important that is. Just take the time to know about them, take the time to see, to let them see that you see them, that they matter. That builds so much trust because bottom line, you're working on the relationship. And then the other side of that too is you show them that you're trustworthy, the things that you do, that you say, that you follow through, that you're there with them, that you're cleaning up the vomit or, whatever,
Yeah.
that you're there, that you're a true servant leader. And then that builds trust.
Yeah.
When you show up, when you say what you're going to do, when you do what you're going to do, they see that you care about them, when they see that they matter, I feel that really pours into them and pours into the culture and climate of a school. And you can tell right away what's happening, when you walk into the building or when someone asks a question. And I can tell you as a principal and you leaders out there, it is so hard when you're walking down that hallway because you got a report due or you got 1,000 emails or you're going to be late for a meeting and you see a staff member who looks like, oh, there's something going on there, to stop, turn around and say, how's it going? Take it. And once again, time, investing time in them. I think bottom line is a really good way to work on building that trust. The other piece, lines of communication, and I know people will say this is kind of crazy, but I always respond to texts, no matter what I'm doing. I always try to respond to texts. I don't have like a, and this is my own fault, a boundary. I don't have boundaries. If someone is texting me, then I know it must be important to them. And even when I see it and I think, oh my God, this couldn't wait till the morning. But then once again, what happens is when you build that trust, they know they'll look at the time. And I've had people tell me this, oh, why it's 7 o'clock. Do I really need to send this text? I know it. Can I wait in the morning? Because I know that Anna will respond, that she'll listen, that she'll pay attention. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
that's great.
and oh yeah, giving yourself a 24-hour for emails. I as a leader myself now in this new role, when I send emails to people and they don't respond within like 24 hours, I get it. I get that you're busy. I get it. But when you respond, it once again, I see you, it matters, you're important to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really resonate. I feel like I needed to hear that because sometimes as a leader, I think it's about my action of going around making sure I'm asking everyone how they're doing, but it's less about that and more about hearing. And
Yeah.
so I loved your example of how you actually listened, and if you hear something in their voice, you address that. And I know I'm kind of guilty of that. Sometimes I'm just so busy. I'm just walking around and I feel like I'm doing it because I'm asking the question. But if you're not actually listening and responding appropriately, that's wasted time. So if you're going to invest the time, do it right and listen. So I feel called out in my own head. Like I need to do that better. So I appreciate that. All right. My next question is dealing with connections between students, which is also an issue sometimes. So, Sonia, what initiatives have been most successful for you in fostering positive relationships and that sense of belonging among students, particularly when there are, different backgrounds or different grade levels? How do you foster those connections between students?
Several ways. In my school, we make sure we make those connections, and one in particular is leadership roles, giving a student voice. And when I say that, even though we have our student council, I have my principal council, and we implement the house system here, Ron Clark House System. So we have house leaders. So we meet with them on a monthly basis, and they bring concerns to us in each of those in those groups. And then we also give surveys I give surveys for them as well, get their feedback. For example, we're having a spirit week here next week, and the students voted on the spirit days, narrowed them down. So the top 5 will be their spirit days for next week. We also practice restorative practices here, also giving the student voice. But it's very important. I think someone said it in the chat, the culture makes or breaks your school. So we have more students than we have staff members. So if the culture, we don't make that connection with them, that's gonna break our school. So we do that. Also, we acknowledge them. We have award ceremonies. We have breakfast for just because for SEL, where we have what we call it pearls and sneakers for girls, and ties and sneakers for boys. And it's just an opportunity for them to come together and collaborate. So we think of, and I can name several things that we do just to give them opportunity to collaborate, to connect with one another. And then also teachers coming in on their lunch period, even though it's their lunch period, coming in and having lunch and sitting and having lunch with our students.
Oh, nice.
I'm in the lunchroom making those connections. It's not just to come in to support the lunchroom, but it's making connections with students and having those small conversations. How is your family, or just something that they're having for lunch, just making a comment about their lunch. And then also being in the hall and being present. I think a lot of times, as we know as administrators, you can get sucked in your office with responding to emails, or something happened, or central office is calling, or meetings, just ongoing meetings. And now that we live in this virtual world, you can call a meeting whenever, just log on. You know, you don't even have to leave the building. So it's really hard to pull away. But sometimes I have a calendar that I have on my door that it shows what days I'm in classrooms. It shows days when I'm meeting with my principal counselor meetings, because you have to have that, because what's important, as we know, that's what we focus on. So that's important for me to get in classroom and build those connections. Again, when I'm in classroom, I tell teachers, I'm not in there just doing an observation or a quick walkthrough. I'm also building relationships with students. So I'm having conversations with students as well.
Mhm.
How are things going? Or, noticing that kid that walks by himself in the halls or eat lunch at the lunch table by himself. I'm making connections with those students and inviting other students to also make those connections. So when I walk in the classrooms, and it's hilarious, students will clap for me, right? And one of the teachers started doing it. So we have sixth graders today. I mean, they just cheer, 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 cheer when I come in the classroom. It's hilarious, but it's also it's a warm feeling that I get. And then when I'm in the halls, they hug, I get hugs. I've been in elementary, at the elementary level, middle school, and high school as a teacher as well. And you think when you're in high school, you don't get those hugs, but you do. Once you build that relationship, you get hugs in high school. I got hugs in high school. I get hugs in middle school. But it's just making that connection. And also, uh, in order to do that, you have to be visible. You have to be present as an administrator. You can't make connection and build relationships in your office.
Yeah.
But and when I'm talking to students, I always explain to them, when you see me in the halls, why do you think I'm there? If you see me in the lunchroom, why do you think I'm there? And it's to watch us to make sure we do it. No, it's to build connections, build a relationship with you so you are comfortable. And I think Anna talked about it as it relates to staff and administrators, that trust. That trust comes is very important as well when you're talking about students. So that's
Mhm.
some of the things that we do. And again, just measuring, how do we measure that? Because you don't want to assume that, oh, the culture is really, really good here. Give them surveys. Do they feel safe in here? Have they been bullied? So I have a bully survey that I send out twice a year. Um, and it's just to make sure that if you've been bullied, have you witnessed someone been bullied? And then we also have Okay to Say, which is another program um, that talks about, and I'm sure people that are from Michigan, that gives students an outlet to have a voice and not be afraid to report something if they've seen something
Yeah.
as well. And then there's one more thing with our house system, just being able for our students across each grade level, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, to be able to interact with other grade levels. We have four house systems here, four houses that we use from Ron Clark, and it has really impacted the culture in our building. We had a student teacher here. Well, she's not a student teacher. She is actually the associate superintendent's daughter. She's in college, and she had to come do an observation. So in a math class, she went to one of my sixth grade math class, and when I sat with her to debrief for her about her day, she said something I had never heard about our school. She said her experience was magical.
Aw.
She dotted the culture. She said the culture in our building, you can tell from when she walked in and to the end of the day, because she stayed for an entire day. And I had never heard anyone describe their experience, but I get that from staff. I mean, parents and staff and visitors that come into our building that say that they can tell the culture in our building. And I really uh, I can't say enough about my staff, because again, I can't do it by myself as a leader. My assistant principal can't do it. It takes a team. It has to be something that is at scale across the board. And when students in the hallway, they speak, I speak. I ask them how they're doing. They ask me, how are you? How was your day? So it's a mutual thing. And it's something that is the culture of our building. When they see visitors, they speak, how are you doing? And again, it all comes under the Ron Clark house system that we're using. And just teaching those students those soft skills is very impactful.
Yeah, I love that. Lots of great things in there. And you should be really proud of that. And you can tell, those accolades or those feelings that people are describing it as. I mean, that doesn't come by accident. It has to
Yeah,
be really intentionally built. And
yeah,
I love the thing you talked about, you can't build that culture from your desk. And it gave me the idea. You said you have a calendar. I'm thinking, there's lots of those calendars like just different sort of self-help calendars out there where you can color code for days, whether it's what you ate or whether it's, did you do some kind of gratitude exercise? I mean, I could see a calendar that did I get out of my, office today? Did I do classroom visits where you can sort of color code and check yourself to make sure you're getting out there to establish those relationships. It's so important.
Yes, yes.
Very All right. Well, one of the questions in our poll was one of the relationships that scored highly was connections between the school and the community. So it's hard enough and busy enough just to make all these connections happen within the school, but the culture is also, the school is part of a community. So I'll send this one to you, Anna. What role does the community play in shaping your school culture, and how do you facilitate partnerships that are mutually beneficial?
Oh, that is a great question and one of my fortes. But very quickly, I forgot to add when we were talking about trust, there's an excellent book out there called The Thin Book of Trust. And if you haven't read that, you really need to get it for yourself because it is amazing. And one of the big takeaways, and I can't remember if I read it in the book or if I heard it somewhere, but they say when you're trying to build trust, act like a person who deserves trust. And I think that is so powerful. Like just act like a person who deserves trust. And so if you don't have that book, The Thin Book of Trust, you need to get it because it is a really powerful book.
I
So
love that.
sorry, back to the community piece.
Community, yes, good memory.
um, I think your community will invest in your school 100%. I've always had the good fortune of having a the community that wraps around your school. And it isn't easy. I feel like you really have to hustle to have your community, really involved in your school. What does that look like? It looks like you reaching out to, places around you, businesses around you. It looks like you showing up to like the Chamber of Commerce and talking about your school or talking about your district. It looks like you joining. Here in GR, we have Leadership Grand Rapids. So, I applied for that. I got accepted into that. And through that, you're able to network and meet people. And when your community wraps around your school, you have a thriving school and you have a community that is thriving as well, and that gives more opportunities to your students. When I went through Leadership Grand Rapids, I met some people a banker, he worked at a bank, and he and another person in that group worked at a law firm, and together my school was like the focus of how they were going to support, the school district. And so they donate every year. They donated $20,000 for the whole time I was there. For the whole 5 years I was there, they donated 20,000. That gave me opportunities to take my kids to, Mackinac Island, to do camping things, to have these wonderful, guest speakers come and invest in my parents and do, PD with my parents and my teachers. And it was amazing because they believed in the school, because the leader of the school, the teachers of the school had a vision for that community. So I think that community plays a huge part in shaping the school culture.
Yeah, that's great. Some really great ideas there. I love that. The last question I'll send to you, Sonia, and it's more about how do you measure success, whether it's building connections within the school community or outside of the school with the larger community. What are those indicators of success? What do they look like for you? How do you measure success when it comes to building culture or building these relationships?
Well, I would say, and when I think of just measure and just without using, of course, a survey, is the retention, my staff retention. And since I've been here at Levy for 7 years now. And every teacher I've hired and other teachers that were here prior to me are still here. Even the ones that can retire are still here.
Oh, wow.
And I have teachers that are within our district, just recently transferred to my building because she heard about the culture of our building and what we're doing here at Levy.
Mhm.
So that's just one of just the retention of staff. And also it's the same measurement that I use for students. We have students that are coming to our school, hearing about what we're doing. Any leader that's on this call knows that if you get board members and their kids, they want to come to your school. That's huge. When you get key people in central office that send relatives, and you hear that that my school is highly recommended. I that is that quick measurement that I use. But I do surveys. I send them to parents as well, and again, students and staff. And then I also do look at behavior, how many incidents we've had. Have we had any physical altercations? Have we had any bullying? All of those things come into play, and also attendance. It's like I use a scorecard. We use it's called a scorecard. So we look at behavior, we look at academics, we look at attendance, and we look at all of that data. We look at that every 45 days. We take a look at our data just to see where we stand in each of those areas. Because kids, I've had parents come in, pick their kids up early because we're doing an activity because we have a house meeting on Fridays. They're begging their parents, can they please stay and not to pick them up? Or they may have doctor's appointments and they're asking, can they change it because they want to stay? One of the things our district, and I'm pretty sure a lot of districts during count day, you have all these different activities going so kids can come to school. Well, we had what we did, we had a raffle, but we didn't have any big to do things. And I did share with my superintendent because they wanted to know what we were doing, is that we don't really have to have gimmicks for kids to come to school because our kids come to school. The data is there. So on count day, we had 98% of our students that showed up. We had, I think it was 10 that were absent out of 360, and 2 of those students had just enrolled that day. So that is the data. That's the hard data that I look at. But just getting feedback again from students, and again, students staying here and want to be here, and parents coming in and sharing information that they've heard about our school. Also, we have our social media platforms that we use. And even with, and just piggybacking off of Anna with the community building relationships, we have partners that have contacted us that want to be partners with us through Oakland Schools. We have Lawrence Tech that is not far from us. They want to be a part about what we're doing here. Everyone is hearing what we're doing and they want to be a part of it. So that alone, like I said, is the data that we collect on a regular basis. Staff satisfaction. Again, they are those, and I know I keep saying surveys, but surveys give you a lot of information, but it's also what you do with that information. And it's not just have them do a survey, but also give them feedback and answer the question as it relates to some of their concerns. And then also, which is very important, is making sure the SEL is making sure, and I think Anna said this, I had a staff member that lost his mom, he lost his dad beginning of the school year and lost his mom. The funeral was Monday. I made sure I attended that, made sure my calendar was clear. I was there, and he was very shocked because it was 30 minutes away from our school. And I still made it my business to be there for him and his family. And it was, they was like, I can't believe you came. We can't believe you came. And I stayed for the entire funeral. It wasn't just show my face and leave. I was there from the time it started to the time it ended. And what she said meant a lot for him. So things like that is data. And I mentioned that because his wife said, I want him to retire, but he can't leave Levy. He doesn't want to leave Levy because he loves it there. He loves you. So, again, those are not quantitative pieces of data, but just hearing that feedback is that data that you capture in that moment. So that's how I measure that. Parental involvement. When we have parent meetings, I have a parent university. When parents, are saying, Jackson, well, whatever you need, just let me know. We have parents to show up for those things, and they fill in the gaps when we want to do something for a student. We have parents that donate items, local businesses that, we go on field trips. Our students go on field trips, and then companies say, we want to partner with your schools. Your students are awesome. How can we support what you're doing at your school? So again, that's data. And then the teacher and staff morale. Teachers come to work. I had 2 teachers that retired. We all deal with vacancies sometimes, but I have subs that come back and come back and come back and come back. And every sub we have, if they're, like I said, they come more than once, I have a survey. Every time we have a sub, they have a little packet. They have important numbers, main office, and then they have a survey about their day. So they turn that in. That's feedback for us. And they anytime subs, I'll come back here, Miss Jackson, anytime you need me. So that's also data, but the morale of my staff is very important because if morale is low, staff don't come to work. So I don't have a huge issue with staff not being here. That's not an issue. If they're taking off, I had a staff member that needed to take off and she wanted to bring, because of Jewish holiday, she wanted to bring her younger son because he's out and she didn't have anyone to watch him. I said, no. She said, but I just want to be here. I want to be here for the kids. I feel guilty. No, take off. It's your Jewish holiday. You do not have to be, you do not have to bring your son to school, but that's how dedicated they are here to show up all the time. And the staff morale is huge, and it's very important because if you don't take care of your staff, they won't take care of our students. So it's important to do that. And I can go on and on and on, but I would love for anyone that would love to come and visit my school because when I first came, this was not the school that I see now. And it didn't happen overnight. And it took a team of my awesome teachers and my admin team, my administrative assistants. We all have the same vision and we have the same message. And it's all the way down, like I said, to my administrative assistants when they answer the phone. It's making people feel welcome and belong here at our school.
That's wonderful. Wow. I mean, yeah, it's super, a lot of inspirational ways there that you are tracking and measuring this. And what I took away from that really is that, we mentioned how intentionally you have to be about building a school culture, but every 45 days you're checking this data, you're doing all the surveys, like you also have to be intentional about maintaining the culture. So if we wonder why we feel so tired at the end of the school year, it's because it's tiring to put in all that time to not only build this kind of culture, but also sustain it over an entire school year and over years to really build that legacy.
It does. And Tara, I'm tired. You said at the end of the school year, you're tired. We're tired already.
Yeah, the end of each day. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes. One of my teachers, she received a grant for $175,000. It's with mobility. It's a grant for STEM. And only ISDs receive that grant. We're the only school in Michigan that received it as a school.
Wow.
So we have been very, very busy, and actually, we're doing a whole lot. So yeah, I'm tired already, and it's October.
All right. Hopefully, you can get a little breather here. All right, that's it for our questions for the panel. If you have any other questions for our panel, feel free to add those in the chat. We can always come back. They'll be with us, but we'll share in our last 15 minutes or so here a few of the tips that we've gathered and maybe some resources that you can use to help build skill culture as well.
Perfect. And I'm just going to leave this question if you want to go ahead and think about this and add it whenever you feel you want to, but just kind of reflect on those biggest takeaways from this discussion. I just want to thank Anna and Sonia so much. There are a lot of things that I was writing down here, and big things like just taking the time and listening, acknowledging, building that trust, being present, being visible. Those are all things that I know I'm going to take with me. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and your thoughts with that. And as Tara mentioned, we are going to close out our time today with just sharing some top tips and takeaways, talking about culture. Now, this is just a sneak peek into a pretty comprehensive resource that we're going to send out your way after this event, and it's going to be our admin guide to shaping school culture. And so we decided to take just a few of those ideas that you can take with you and bring back to your school and hopefully use right away. So the first, we're talking about connecting with staff, and Sonia and Anna did such an incredible job talking about how they connect with their staff and so many incredible ideas. One of the things I wanted to share was something that we've also tried with staff as well, as these circles. So just this idea of removing the hierarchy. And I just know my days of being in staff meetings and sitting in either student desks or at tables in an auditorium or in a conference room. And then the leader up front, you're just kind of going over the agenda. And I mean, what an empowering way to kind of turn the tables literally and get rid of them and put the teachers in circles. Circles are used in the classroom all over. They're become very popular for building community, for restorative practices, but using this at your staff meeting time is a great way to empower your teachers, to give them a voice, and also to listen. You listen to maybe their challenges, their concerns, their ideas, their solutions, their good things, the things that they've accomplished in their classroom. So if you have just like all circles, you'll have a circle keeper. So that is the person that's facilitating the questions. And then there'll be a talking piece. A mascot works really well, like that bulldog there. And then obviously that's the piece I'll be moving around the circle as people are talking. We also put together an example of staff circle prompts. And so if you're getting started doing this, this is a great place to start. There's just some general questions looking at, instruction or things that could be going on in your school. Obviously, you can tailor them to your specific needs. Now, circles probably don't work if you've got a big group of 50. You're probably not going to do 50 in one circle, but you could do smaller circles. Maybe you do this in PLC time. You could do smaller circles in the beginning of professional development, just to really get to know your teachers, build that connection between you and them, and also the connection between the staff, and just getting to know who it is they're working with. And so that's one example that is part of that white paper or that admin guide we're going to send out. We're talking about connecting with students. I just wanted to share with you a couple of resources that we'd love for you to share with your teachers, because we talked about community, and Anna and Sonia did such an incredible job sharing how do they make sure that their students feel connected. And one way we need to do that is making sure that not only do you feel connected when they walk in to the school, but when they walk into every single classroom, to feel that connection between the students in that class and the connection between the teacher and them. And so one way to do that is just really encourage, promote community building, and making that just as important as the content that the teachers need to teach. And so we created 5 lessons here. And I'll just click on this really quickly just to show you what this looks like. You can send this URL out to your staff, maybe in your next meeting that you have, or email blast you have, or newsletter, to add this there. But these are 5 lessons. They're grade banded, K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and it's all about building that community. And granted, it's great to start with this at the beginning of the year, but really these can be used throughout, because we know that building community is not just a one-time deal. It's something that's happening continuously, throughout the school year as well. And just a special note, the Baboon's Dilemma is one of my absolute favorites, so be sure to check that one out too. Okay, another resource. These aren't lessons per se, but these are just great strategies to build community that only take minutes at a time. This can be used with your staff, but it also obviously can be used in the classroom. I just want to highlight my absolute favorite because it's so easy and it's so fun. And if you ever think about icebreakers and like, oh, I don't want to do these, right? Because I think most people do that. This is actually a really good one to get to know each other. And it's very kind of a low threat level on that. So it's called Still Standing. You give everyone a note card, and you have them write 4 things, and you can see how they progress. You write one thing that you have in common with most people in the room. So maybe it's your teacher. And then you write something that you have in common with about half of the people in the room. Maybe you like pizza. Something you have in common with just a few people in the room. Maybe you like to golf. And last, something that's just unique to you. Maybe you've cliff jumped off of the Rocky Mountains into glacial water. Whatever it happens to be. And then what you do is you grab all the cards, and then you pick one, and everyone's standing, and you just start reading through them. And then people start sitting down as it doesn't correspond to them. And so finally you left with one person still standing. So it's a really fun, easy way to get to know each other, and a really quick thing for a teacher or an administrator to implement in meetings as well. And there's just a lot of different strategies and ideas. Again, this is a resource you can send out to your teachers as Okay, connecting with community. We got some really great ideas. Both Anna and Sonia talked about community and just making sure to get out there. I love the word that Anna uses, hustle, right? hustling and making yourself known and present and networking. Well, one way to do that and maybe taking that load off of your shoulders is to crowdsource that. And so we put together this resource. It's a spreadsheet that you can send out to your staff, and they have people in their lives or people they know in the community that would be willing to come in and connect in the classrooms, to bring that relevancy and authenticity. So ask them to put in, names of people that other teachers can contact to bring them into their class, to work with the students, to talk to the students, and to become a more collaborative type of partner. So that's one resource or idea for connecting with community. Another one is just to take an assessment of your community. This is an assessment map that, again, is linked in that administrator guide you'll be given. And it's just taking a look at what's going on in your community. What are those different resources that are available that you can use to start building those partnerships, but also start using for your families, to provide them different services or where to go to. So those are, it's a great tool to really kind of look to see what is around your community and how you can make that partnership even more strong. And then finally, just looking at the importance of those real world experts and bringing those people in your community into the classroom. If you have that crowdsourced document there and you have teachers that, I need someone to help with a proposal someone's doing on for a budget for a world fair that they have to propose in their ELA class. Well, bring in a financial expert there into the class to talk to the students about what they do and how they can then bring that into their work and to make it more real. And so one of the things I wanted to highlight is how we've done that in our programs here. This is one of our after school programs that happened last fall. And those students you see in the upper left-hand corner, they were tasked with coming up with solutions to improve the health of this park. Now, this park is in a very urban location. It's a very small park. And they were part of this Ecosystem Explorers program, which they're not only learning about sustainability, diversity, and doing a lot of different science investigations. They were doing it with a purpose. What they were doing mattered because they know they were taking everything they learned to make the world a better place. But they needed help doing that. They needed experts to come in and to guide them and give them ideas so they could come up with the best proposals to make this park healthier. And so we engaged with individuals from our local public works that came in and talked about conservation, talked about sustainability. And so then the students used that in their proposals, and they got to pitch their proposals to stakeholders, to those people that actually make the decisions about that park. And they chose two different groups' ideas, and those ideas were put into action. They actually saw their idea put into action and made a difference to the health of the park. So it's just a really great way to involve community, to make those partnerships, but also empower your students to make the world a little bit better. And so those are the 3 tips. Now, I know you're going to be getting a lot more than that after this in that resource that I mentioned, and I'm going to turn things over to Tara now.
So we'll just wrap it up. As Don mentioned, you'll get that resource with lots of these different ideas itemized in there. But I can tell you the biggest thing you can do to probably hurt your school's culture is to provide professional development that isn't meaningful or isn't something that teachers actually appreciate. So I thought I'd give you just a little bit about our professional development. What really sets us apart is the fact that we have our own students. So we work with our students. As Don mentioned, we just did that project in our own park. We work with the people who are doing the professional development are working with students, and they're working with students post-pandemic, which is a different thing. And so I think that's really something that's important, is that teachers feel like they can see themselves and they feel understood. And it's not like someone who has been just out of the classroom and telling teachers what they should be doing without doing it themselves. So I just want to put a little pitch in for our professional development providers there. You can see them. They bring a lot of personality to professional development and make it something that is really enjoyable, but also really practical and useful. And then some of the most popular topics that we do professional development on are authentic learning, like the project-based learning unit that Don just mentioned, inquiry-based instruction, whether that's inquiry-based science or math or ELA. How do you really bring that inquiry approach to any content area? Differentiated instruction is something we get a lot of requests for. Really popular now is AI, and how can you use that in the classroom in meaningful ways? And some of our professional development providers have come up with some really creative ways, and our teachers have come up with really creative ways to get students using AI in a safe way. And then student engagement is a perennial favorite topic. How do we keep them engaged, especially post-pandemic students? So I just wanted to put that out there. I know school culture is something that's important to all of us. And if PD is a part of your planning for school culture or for any other initiatives, I wanted to let you know that that's something that we are happy to do and how we are different about it and what topics we do a lot of. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to vaieducation.org and learn more about there under professional development. But another way you can do it is you can enter to win a free lunch and learn. You can actually try it yourself. So there's some of those topics there. And so if you would like for our staff to give a 30-minute kind of virtual PD to your staff, and we also provide the lunch. So we'll send out the menu, we'll go get the sub sandwiches, whatever it is. So it's a nice way to build some culture, some good culture with your teachers because you're giving them a free lunch and they always love that. And also some professional development, hopefully some tips that they can use right away. So if you're interested in a free lunch and learn, you can scan that QR code, fill that out, and we will pick a winner and get back to you. And then, of course, if you are interested in any of the things for attending this webinar, there's a 20% discount. So you can look at that at vaieducation.org/thank you. So you can find out all the goodies there. So we thank you so much for your time. And thank you again to our panelists, Anna and Sonia, for sharing all your insights, all your specific examples. Someone mentioned in the chat they were really helpful and they hope to implement some of those. So that's very, very helpful. And thank you, Dawn, for sharing some of the ideas that we've done with our own teachers. And I hope this was helpful to you all in building your own school cultures. It's not an easy task, that's for sure.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
You.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.